coming up.
The scary part to me is something happening to me that I didn't have control over. Feeling like I was caught in a trance and I am not aware of it. And that's the part that scares me the most, is like something having power over you that you're not aware of.
Welcome to Unholy Vibes. It's your boy Alex. Today we're joined by another very special guest, my boy Jade. Jade, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, what you're all about.
My name is Jade. I work for a company that helps people receive care who have disabilities. It's a very cool job helping people. I enjoy it.
Very nice.
But I am, as far as unholy vibes go, probably a little like I've been skeptic my whole life, but I'm curious. Kind of like you, where not a lot has happened to me, a couple things that we'll get into, but most of the time it's just, I want to hear your story. Very cool. Let's talk about it. But most of my life has just been like, I don't know.
Except for your stories, your blips on the radar are a lot more intense than anything I've ever experienced. That's for sure.
That's
Jade
true.
knows I'm a sucker for spooky stories. For years, I've been bothering him. And since I started Unholy Vibes, I've been bothering him. Finally, here we are for season 2, so that's exciting.
I was saving myself for season 2. The anticipation is what I was going for. The build-up has to be there.
Better pay off now.
I know, the expectation is there. You have been wanting my stories because we've talked about them over a bunch of camping trips around a campfire. It's been the best vibes when we're sitting around and telling ghost stories. Hopefully that's the vibe with this.
Okay, so Jade was saving himself. We've always been in the spooky realm, talking about spooky stuff. If anyone has ever listened to anything I've said on the show, I am always bothering people for their stories. I'm always trying to bring out the spooky vibes no matter where I go. Over years of hanging out, camping trips, whatever, I'm always trying to get more out of Jade. At first, you were a lot more hesitant to really speak on these things. Now, do you want to dive into that and explain why?
That's true. I've kind of developed my openness to spooky things early on in my life. It was like, this stuff is scary. Don't talk about it. It brings more bad things into your life. Now I feel like it's okay. As long as you're bringing a good attitude to it, it's all good. At first it was like, you're going to spread bad things if you talk about it. But now it's like, as long as you're being positive and bringing good energy to it, doesn't matter.
I can
talk
subscribe
about
to
it
that
and have fun. Yeah.
I can get
That's what
behind that because I'm very similar in thought. Well, sometimes you do invite the unholy vibes. You get the spooky, icky chills, and then you kind of have to lighten the mood. But if you're lightening your own mood because you know at the end of it all, what's a ghost going to do to me? You know, you've developed that over the years because when you were younger, just talking about it was bad, right?
Something my parents probably would bring up. It's just like, don't talk about scary or
Speak no
possibly
evil.
scary. So here's how it's been in my life. I've been more curious and done more things actively to search things out later in my life. Nothing bad has happened because I'm doing more things to seek out. Ghost experiences, stuff like that. It hasn't increased the bad things or spooky things happening in my life.
I think there's a lot of power in how you handle these things.
Yeah.
I've had guests before that let it have more power than it needed. And it took time for them to be like, no, none of that. Anywho, let's start at the beginning.
Here's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
What if the first experience I ever had with spooky, unholy vibes was the most scared I've ever been? The other experiences I have came later on and to me are less spooky.
So you want to end on the climax is what you're saying. Start here and work our way back. I'm assuming you're talking about the experience from your mission?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went on a mission, like I think a few other guests have on this podcast. And a lot of weird things happen,
They
you
sure
know,
do.
in other countries. It's not very developed. There's a lot of spiritual thinking in where I was, which was Colombia. I think a lot of things happen there that might not happen in other places just because everyone is more in tune with things like that. I was there, and we will come back. That's a little tease for you.
Mid-episode teaser trailer for the end of the episode. I already know, but
But
I'm still excited.
having had that experience, I came back to the United States. I didn't tell anybody about the experience for a while. At first, I wasn't to share stuff. Then I started getting a bit more into hearing stories we would talk to friends about. I started sharing more. When I married my wife, she was really into ghost adventures and the scary TV shows that are kind of silly, but they're fun to watch because it's like, oh, what if this is true? What if
It's
this actually happened?
entertainment.
But in watching that, you go, okay, what if we really tried this? Like, would we have these same experiences? So my wife and I were living in San Diego at the time. We decided, hey, we watch all these shows, they do all these things. Let's try what they're doing in haunted places, and we'll figure out if they're BS or not. It's like, let's prove them wrong, or we're going to have a cool experience.
Factor Cap Ghost Edition.
Exactly. So here's the first thing. We're in San Diego. If you've ever been to San Diego, you know there's an old town. This is like an old Spanish town where it's like earliest settlers of San Diego, you know, from Spain and early Mexico things. So it's like all these original buildings. You have a town square, the courthouse, schoolhouse, general store, old Spanish cathedral, and church house. This is a historical town that you can go and visit at any time. So we decided to go to Old Town, and we were going to go to the cemetery. It has really old tombstones, a lot of old graves from this early time period before it was even the United States, before it was a part of the United States, I guess. So we decided that we were going to go and we were going to try out some methods we saw on TV. One of these is called the Estes Method. You get one of those sound boxes where it flashes through different radio signals, and it's mostly static, and it
White
just
noise.
goes, yeah, and it goes through all these different radio channels, and sometimes you'll hear something come through. The idea is a ghost or spirit could use that to speak, taking the electromagnetism or the radio waves to say something to you. What makes this method cool is that you have somebody with noise canceling headphones listening to those radio frequencies. They sit with their eyes closed, blindfolded, noise canceling headphones, so they're totally isolated. They can't hear things around them at all, and sensory deprivation.
Except for the
And that's
audio.
the idea, is you get that sensory deprivation, you're more susceptible to maybe hearing something. They will repeat any words that they hear come through the headphones. And everybody else around can ask questions, try to communicate with spirit or ghost. The idea is you speak it out into the space. That person is like a mouthpiece for the spirits. They hear a word, they can respond to you. And it's a non-biased way of them being able to communicate what they're hearing. We decided to go with our roommate to Old Town to try this method. We get to the cemetery. We're doing this for a while. Nothing is really happening. We're asking questions while she's under the headphones listening in and hearing things, but nothing really makes sense. So we're like, this isn't really working. Let's try something else, right? So we decided to go over to the old schoolhouse. We also brought along a little electromagnetic reader thing. I forget what they call it.
EMF reader, yeah.
An EMF reader.
If anyone out there has played Phasmophobia or any of those ghost hunting games or watched
Yes.
Ghost Hunters, it's all that same stuff they use.
Yeah. And so we're trying to use these things to debunk it or find something cool. We go to the schoolhouse and all of a sudden this EMF reader is going off. And we're like, oh, okay. And that's the first time we get that feeling of like, oh, something could be here. Nothing has ever gone off. Nothing's really made sense with the stuff we're doing. And that was the first time where it all of a sudden started clicking up, the little EMF reader. And we started feeling the energy. There was like a buzz. And that's when we decided to try the Estes method again. Our roommate puts the headphones on. We test her to make sure she can't hear us. She has a face mask covering her eyes, noise canceling headphones. She can't hear a thing we're saying or see what we're doing. We start asking her questions and we are speaking English and nothing is really happening. My wife turns to me and says, maybe try asking in Spanish. I learned Spanish, so I was like, okay, I'll speak in Spanish. And I am the only one that speaks Spanish. So my roommate, who is using noise canceling headphones, doesn't know that I'm about to speak Spanish. She doesn't know Spanish. And my wife doesn't know Spanish either. I start asking questions in Spanish and start getting some answers. The first thing I ask is there anyone here? Did anybody go to school here? Roommate who does not speak Spanish at all of a sudden starts responding in Spanish and she says, sí. And now I'm remembering she said aquí, which is here. That was the first thing that registered for me. Oh, my roommate does not speak Spanish. Someone is saying yes here to my question, is anybody here? That's when I got that first sinking feeling that there's something here, because I can't explain how she would say to, just randomly, she wouldn't say that. She doesn't know what that means. My heart starts racing and I'm racing right now as well, just thinking about it. And I'm kind of freaking out. My wife says to keep speaking. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, let's keep going. I say, is there anybody here with you? My roommate says, maestra. And if you don't know, that means teacher in Spanish. We realize this is probably a student here with their teacher. I start asking different questions. My wife and I are freaking out because I'm asking questions in Spanish. My wife doesn't understand them, but she can understand the Spanish answers are coming back. And we both know that my roommate doesn't speak Spanish. I ask, are you a student here? Es un estudiante aquí. And my roommate says niño. So it says, oh, I'm a kid. I ask, how old are you? ¿Cuántos años tienes? They say, pequeño. So little. And these are exact coming straight back after I ask the questions. There's no delayed response, or these are straight back to back. Everything my roommate says are just these words. This is blowing our minds because I've never even seen this from other people I've seen do this method. It's like there's a lot of words just thrown in that don't really make sense. But in this moment, these are exact answers, and these are the only answers we're getting. And it's in Spanish from an old Spanish town, and my roommate doesn't know what she's saying.
This is the kind of stuff you see in a scary movie right before something terrible happens.
Well, funny you should say that. My wife and I we're freaking out, right? We're just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Then I say, ¿Quién algo está aquí? Who else is here? And nothing. Silence. we get kind of a weird feeling that, okay, this was like a conversation and now it's complete silence. And the EMF reader starts going crazy again. All of a sudden, across from this little schoolyard is the courthouse. And they have a jail cell behind the courthouse where they would hold criminals waiting to go into the courthouse. And we hear rattling on the jail cell. And so it's like the bars are being rattled. And this is, I would say, 50 yards away from the schoolhouse. It's a pretty long distance away. And we hear this rattling. We get spooked and look over. Nobody at the jail cell. It is, by the way, 3 o'clock at night. There's nobody out here. We
3
specifically
in the
went
morning.
3 in the morning.
The witching
Yes.
hour, as it were.
The witching hour. Yeah. So we purposely went there in the middle of the night because we didn't want anybody else there. We hear this jail cell rattling. The EMF reader is going off like crazy. And all of a sudden, zero response to any questions. We start asking, is anyone there? Where did you go? Silence. Nothing. Not even a random word coming out of
And
my roommate.
your roommate is hearing just static in the headphones, still trying
Yeah.
to listen for voice. They don't know what's just happened.
They're just
Okay.
waiting for the next word,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So we have this bad feeling, right? All of a sudden, the vibe kind of changes, that unholy vibe. And we are asking, is anybody there? Is anybody there? ¿Alguien está aquí? ¿Alguien está aquí? And all of a sudden, we think the child coming back again, saying, oh, estoy aquí. We hear aquí again, and we think that this is the child coming back. But we have this horrible feeling, right? This is when we decide, I don't know if we are still talking to children at a schoolhouse anymore. We think this might be something else. We should probably stop. Because we have heard, watching these things, we don't know what could be talking back to us. Sometimes bad things like to imitate children, stuff like that. We had to stop then and there because the feeling was so bad. Get chills thinking about it right now. So that's at the point where we told our roommate, okay, we pulled the headphones off and we said, okay, we're done. This got wild. We decided to fill her in, like, oh my gosh, we were all of a sudden talking in, she comes out of it and says, I don't know what I was saying. Like, that just sounded like gibberish to me. Like, did any of that make sense? She thought it was a total bust the whole time. She was like, I don't know if that works. And my wife and I are like, yeah, that worked. You were speaking Spanish. And she was just like, I thought I was just speaking some gibberish the whole
Racist, bro.
time.
Okay. So, roommate, this is just so great. They're blissfully ignorant to what's been going on.
Yeah. Honestly, the whole time was like, yeah, this is a bust, guys. Like, this method doesn't work. And so we had to fill her in. We were speaking with a child who went to school here, who was there with the teacher, and the vibes went weird. I think we started talking with something else. And so that's when we told you to take your headphones off. She was just shocked about the whole thing, had no idea. That was the first time we realized that I think this works. That was my first experience where it was like, oh, these methods, maybe they work. Maybe the stuff that we watch sometimes it's legit, I think. I was always skeptical until then.
Okay. That was the first experience. Please continue. We're on to the second. You were skeptical, and now you're a little less skeptical.
Now I'm a little less skeptical. Maybe these methods, maybe these things that people do have some merit to them. Where before I was thinking, this is all just for show, just for entertainment value. That was our first night. And actually, before the end of that night, we decide, okay, vibes are high. We just had this crazy experience. Let's go back to the cemetery and see if anything happens there. It's in the middle of the night. And so we decide to go quickly back over there.
I don't know if you mentioned that you went to a cemetery first before going to the...
So we went to the cemetery before the schoolhouse and nothing was really happening. It wasn't that late at that point. It was still kind of, I don't know, midnight. There were still some people lingering around. So we didn't really have the best vibes, but we had no luck there. We tried to do the Estes Method there as well, but had no luck and decided to go over to the schoolhouse.
Okay. I can't remember if you mentioned that or not.
Yeah, no, you got
back to the
but
cemetery.
So yeah, we decided, like the Scooby Gang, back to the cemetery. So because we were like, oh, so much better now. This is the vibe we're looking for. The cemetery's got to be popping right now. This is one of the oldest cemeteries in the United States. This has old Spanish settlers, old Native Americans buried in this area. And it's very spooky walking down the street around this cemetery as they've developed, the town and everything, and as they put things in like sewage, stuff like that, they have found all of these burial sites, all of these graves, and to commemorate and to keep the graves around, kind of the memory of these people, they put little gold coins, these little gold medallions inlaid into the street and sidewalk to show that somebody was buried underneath. So you're walking down the street and there's all these little gold coins.
I don't think I like that.
It's all people that they've found. It's terrible vibe. It's basically saying, yeah, we've desecrated this gravesite. Here's a little coin.
Desecrated the gravesite for a sidewalk. Hope you're happy. Here's a coin.
So who knows what could be happening here? We take a bunch of pictures around the cemetery, and we actually got a picture of what could be a famous ghost of San Diego that we didn't see till we got home later. Okay, so we're at the cemetery. Nothing really happens, but we take a bunch of pictures. When we get home that night, we realize that we got something in the picture. There's like, maybe we're seeing something. It looks like a man with a suit and tie, maybe a hat. This could be a really famous ghost in San Diego called Yankee Jim. Basically, what Yankee Jim's story is, he was hung for stealing. This is one of the first people that was tried and hung for his crimes in San Diego, Yankee Jim. And he was actually hung on the site of the Whaley House, which is one of the most haunted houses of America, is what they say.
You want to make a field trip?
People go to this location for haunted tours all the time. We gotta go. Okay. We go to the Whaley House. We go to the cemetery. We go to the schoolhouse.
I'd be too scared, actually, probably. You know what would happen, Jade? What would happen if I went?
What?
Nothing.
That is classic you.
That's classic me. Nothing would happen because I'm a repellent. But anyway, you see this ghost.
But that night, we just went home, had a crazy conversation about the interaction at the schoolhouse. And then we started looking through pictures and realized that we saw what looks like a ghost in the cemetery. So it's one of those things where in the moment, we didn't think anything happened. But looking back, there was something there. This looks like Jim, the famous ghost. It's funny you say that nothing really happens, though, because the Whaley House is super haunted, apparently. The whole story is this guy hung his family out in the backyard on their tree and then shot himself with the shotgun. So it's like a family murder suicide way back in the day, and was very gruesome.
Sounds like Sinister up in this sucker, dude. Dang.
Uh-huh.
But different. But
But
anyway, yeah, gruesome.
I've never had any experience at the actual Whaley house, but outside, yes. Speaking of wild San Diego history, there's another location where we decided to go back with our roommate and another friend. This place is called the Witch's Tower.
No thanks.
And I'll probably butcher the story of the Witch's Tower. The Witch's Tower was a place to hold prisoners of war. And this is the site of the first American killed in the Mexican-American War. Prisoners were being held there. There wasn't supposed to be, they were just supposed to be held. And the story goes that this crazy general, or just somebody that was in charge of the fort, had, some people say it was something a little weird happened. Maybe something came over him and decided that he needed to kill this prisoner, this soldier that was there. Ever since then, it's been a historical site, and it's been like this marker of, oh, this is something weird happened years ago. They decided to restore this historical site, and they rebuilt this tower with, it has the little room underneath, and you can walk up to the top and look out over San Diego. Well, on top of this site, they put a star in tile on the roof where you can walk up to it. A lot of people see this as a pentagram on top of the Witch's Tower. And this is how it all started. People started using this to do ritual things,
Witchcraft?
conjurings, witchcraft, all of that. And for some reason, when restored, they put basically a pentagram on top of the tower.
That's an interesting design choice.
I don't know what it's for, but it's turned into, this is a place to do witchcraft.
Now, do you want to speculate on that really quick? Do you want to think about the conspiracy? Speculate. Do you think that was intentional? Do you think there was something awry? Or do you think it was just, hey, stars are cool. Let's put it here. And they didn't even think about it.
I'm sure people do speculate. I am not one of those people, but I mean, there could be, somebody who restored this was into witchcraft and wanted a place on an historical site with a historical murder to do some weird things.
Listen, you talk to witches like my mom. She'll be like, well, maybe there was a portal there, or maybe there was like a lot of energy there. Who knows, right? I like to speculate about that kind of stuff because it's fun.
Hey, you're not off base though, because there is also a American site there that was destroyed by building this Spanish fort.
Dude, what are we thinking?
Right?
What are we thinking, dude?
Yeah.
Hey,
desecrate things and find out,
But hey, at least they put some coins down in a giant pentagram on a tower to commemorate. Damn, bro. Listen, I want everyone to just think about this for a second. It's never a great idea to desecrate any sort of burial ground. Just as a general rule to live by, you're probably better off not desecrating this burial ground or this grave site or this whatever. Just better safe than sorry and cursed forever. And I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know if they were thinking. It's never turned out great.
No.
to be like, yeah,
I have
just a little bit of desecrated burial ground. What's the big
yeah.
what's the big deal? What's the
Yeah.
big deal?
Never once have I heard a positive thing coming out of, "Oh, we desecrated this place. Turned out
Yeah,
great."
exactly.
Never once.
They're never like, dude,
Never
did you
once.
hear I desecrated a burial ground? Like, got super strong the next day, or like I found treasure, or like angels ministered to me. It's never once in the history of ever has anyone had a great desecration experience. It's the dumbest shit I've ever talked about, but it's actually kind of funny. That's actually pretty funny.
Truest thing I've ever
I
heard on
could
this
see a
podcast.
funny video of that being like, no, I'm the positive grave desecrator. Like, good things come to me because of this.
Yeah. Let's
Okay.
find the one person. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Wait, you guys are desecrating graves and bad things are happening? Oh shoot, I've never had that experience.
I've only had great things happen to me when I desecrate graves.
Yeah, only positives. I like grow taller, I get stronger, like I feel really good, like I get really good sleep, just fame and fortune. Okay, anyway, my goodness.
So
Witch's
let's
Tower,
see.
pentagram, let's go.
Okay. So we decide, and we look this up on the internet, right? Just of, hey, where can we go to maybe have some spooky experiences? We didn't realize how crazy this place is. Obviously, you hear Witch's Tower, we probably should have thought this is pretty crazy. But we were just like, whatever. That immediately changed when you walk up to, well, first of all, in the middle of night, this place is kind of spooky already because it's on top of a hill and it's the tower. And then down the hill is just woods. It's just empty land until you get down to the bottom of the hill. And then it's the old town, the
Just
old
more burial
Spanish town.
ground.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere where this tower is there. We're already feeling kind of weird about this. We actually took a knife out of the car and brought it with us just to be like, we're in some bad territory here. Well, we walk up to the top of this tower, and when you get up there, you see like handle wax, burn marks, and people, scratching stuff into the bricks of this tower. And our mood changes. We're like, wow, this is kind of crazy. These people might be doing some weird shit up here, you know? But we decided to go with it anyway and brought an EMF reader again. We brought just stuff that we've seen, in these videos. So I brought one of those flashlights where you can turn them on, like turn the cap. And if you put them right on the edge, like there's a kind of a sweet spot of you can turn it right before it's supposed to turn on. The idea is if light starts flashing, a spirit or a ghost is trying to, they can speak through that as well, where they can turn the light on and off. So we set that up. We also set up a cat ball where, if you know what cat ball is, it's a little plastic ball. When it moves at all, it starts flashing a light. It's a thing that ghost hunters use as well.
As like a motion sensor, kind of?
Yeah, so sometimes it'll just start going off even if it hasn't moved, or maybe it moves a little bit and you just can't really tell if it moves or not. It'll just all of a sudden start blinking, which everyone will say as well. In normal circumstances, you do have to move those things to get it to start lighting up. So when it does go off, it's very alarming. We set all these things up, and this time we start taking turns doing the Estes method again. So we put on noise canceling headphones, blindfold ourselves, and people start asking questions. The person just is saying words that they hear in their headphones. Well, it comes to, I don't really remember what happened before this because I had a crazy experience when I put on the headphones. So we're all taking turns. It's to my turn, and I have the headphones on, and all you hear is that static, and it's flickering between stations, so it's very loud. That's all you can hear. That's all you can see, nothing else, right? And I'm going, I think I'm saying some words, and I'm going for quite a while. Later, people were telling me that I was answering questions to them. I didn't know at the time. I just thought that I was saying words, like kind of what it feels like doing that. But everyone else was having that freak out of, oh, I think we're getting answers here. I think someone's speaking to us. And I'm just thinking I'm saying words. All of a sudden, I get this weird feeling that something is behind me. I can feel like the hairs on the back of my neck start to stand up. And it feels like there's something on my shoulder. So I'm getting this weird feeling, and I'm just hearing the static going off in my ear. And all of a sudden, I hear this growl, snarl, this in my ear. And it is so loud and so sudden. And it feels like it's coming from right beside me where I'm feeling something on my shoulder. It scares me so badly that I throw the headphones off and flinch away from my shoulder where it sounded like somebody yelled in my ear. As soon as I try to take the headphones off, everyone else is freaking out because the cat ball goes off, the light starts flickering, and they are reacting to these things going off. They had no idea that I just had someone yell in my ear. And I am terrified. And they think, oh my gosh, we just had something go off. How cool.
Jade, guess what? And you're like, no.
Yeah.
So they also had the EMF reader, right? Was going off as well in addition.
Yeah. So everything went off at the same time. So EMF reader went off, cat ball went off, our flashlight went off. And I felt like somebody was on my shoulder that just yelled into my ear. I can still kind of feel that, the most unholy vibe. And I think that's kind of the darkest feeling I've had where it's so close to me. Like I feel it before something happens. And I've never had that before where hairs stand on the back of my neck and it feels like someone's right behind you. Terrifying experience. So everyone is freaking out, and I tell them something just yelled into my ear, and everyone starts getting really scared, really freaking out. We decide to call it after that because we realize this place is not like speaking with some kids at the schoolhouse. We think some really wrong things are happening on top of this tower. So really bad vibes are being put out at this place.
Of all places, the pentagram tower on the desecrated burial ground. Some weird stuff is happening. Wow.
Yeah. You think we would have just realized that before we went. But yeah, that was one of those experiences where I think we thought that it would just be chill, whatever. And we kind of realized that, okay, maybe there are some dark things that can't be there. That was a very scary experience.
Now, do you think anything would happen if I went there?
That place, I think you might. That's one of the places where I know some shady shit goes down there.
It's
I
too
don't know if,
concentrated for something not to happen, is what you're saying?
yeah, it's like people are purposefully trying to do dark things there. I don't know if you being a spooky repellent can overcome the energy of other people trying to summon things. I think that's an energy that is very hard to overcome.
Yeah, I've never put myself in a situation like that. So after this all
Yeah.
happens, you guys rush out of there, I'm assuming. No, let's get the heck out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. We were not feeling it. We even started hearing, we thought people outside of the tower as well, kind of around in the area. And that might have been, we were hearing voices or something. So even that could have not been real people. But we decided if that is real people or not, we don't want to be in this area anymore.
Mm-hmm.
If it is real people, we don't want some random people coming up to us in the middle of the night at a witch's tower. And if it's not real people, even more so, we don't want to be there anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Oof.
yeah, we got out of there.
Give me the chills a few times. So, did you ever go back? Did you ever try doing these things again to try and contact spirits, Estes Method, EMF, reader, any of that?
We only did it those couple of times. I would be happy to go back to the old town and go try that again. I don't know if I would want to go back to the witch's tower. Ever.
Maybe in the daytime, in the daylight.
Yeah.
You know,
and
with the sun shining on us, a little less spooky when it's not dark, right? Go there in the daytime just to give it a little check out, you know, give it a little look-see.
Yeah, and we have like been past it in the daytime, and it doesn't seem like it just seems like an ordinary little tower in this historical site. You wouldn't think that it has kind of this deep underbelly until you go there at night, and it's terrifying. So,
dude, it makes me feel like I'm in some sort of high fantasy book. There's the witch's tower, you know, she'll cast a spell on you. Anyway, that's terrifying. Now,
yeah.
you weren't really scared straight though here, is what I feel like. Because we discussed this at the beginning. What's going to happen kind of thing. You have a lot more positivity and power over those things. Is that kind of what we're getting at, right?
I think those experiences were mostly let's go have fun with friends. See if we can debunk or have fun experiences together.
Was this the
based
same
on
roommate
these.
as before?
Yeah. So same roommate and another friend my wife went to law school with, actually. So
the max you ever did was 4 people then?
actually, no. So there was 5 people that night. There was our roommate's girlfriend and our friend that my wife went to law school with.
Okay.
So yeah, 5 of us there that night.
Could you imagine going there alone and trying all that?
Oh, no. I think I would actually be too afraid to go back by myself at night. Honestly, that's probably the only place that I'm scared to actually go.
And how many people do you think you could bring in a group and still have something happen, do you think? Like 20 people, and you're like, hey guys, we're going to make some haunted shit happen. Do you think it would happen with that many people?
No, I don't think so. There were 5 of us around in this. We were in a circle, and I'd say you could only fit a couple more people up there without it being crowded. So you could only fit probably up to 10 people, and it would be crowded on top of that tower.
You think something would still happen though?
Yeah, I think it would.
I think you could take that spooky and scary and concentrated, you know, witchery, that it would still go down.
Here's the weird thing is when everyone is down to just go have a fun time, sometimes things don't happen. I think the moments where everyone has oh, maybe something is happening here, and everyone has that chill come over them, and everyone's into that same moment together, I feel like that's when something happens. It feels like all of a sudden everyone focuses on the same thing. And maybe it's everyone putting their energy towards something or something like that. Maybe that's what sparks it. I'd say if you get too many people, then all of a sudden you have too many cards. You know, not everyone is ready to like focus up on this one thing.
Okay. So the sweet spot is somewhere between 1 and 10, give or take. But at the same time, if you go there by yourself, there's no spectacle. So do you think any spirits or ghosts or whatever would even do anything? Do you think they thrive on the spectacle, on the attention?
I think that's a possibility. I think going there by yourself might be seen as something vulnerable as well. If there's something malicious there, that's what I would be nervous about.
Either nothing would happen or a lot would happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Stuff that people talk about, hauntings and stuff like that. I feel like that's how you get it is you go to somewhere where you have no buffer, no help or anything. I feel like there's strength in numbers, where if you go by yourself, you're kind of leaving yourself open if there's something really malicious. Who knows?
I'm gonna have to look up the Witch's Tower and see if there's anything on YouTube. I'm just interested now. So you got the bejeebies scared out of you, all 5 of you. Haven't
Yeah.
really done much about since like this, right?
No, we've talked about it. I think it was a perfect combination of, oh, we're a group of friends who are all kind of into this thing. Let's go have fun for the night. And there's some haunted things really close to us. I feel like there's a few haunted things where we live now, but nothing that sounds like a fun time to go hang out at as well, you know? It's like, oh, there are some haunted things, but it's like out in the woods where it's not a fun place to be anyway.
A little too spooky. Anything in the woods, no
Yeah.
thanks. Okay, so it's crazy that you just do that for like a chill time with the friends, Hey guys, how are we gonna unwind this weekend? Let's go get scared shitless, honestly. Like that's gonna be the only way I can feel good about this weekend.
Uh,
Okay.
it does sound crazy, but it was fun. I feel like even though I was scared at the Witch's Tower, the people that you're with, it makes it fun where you can just talk about it after and you're just like, oh man, remember how crazy this was? And it's an experience you can have with your friends,
You're an
I guess.
adrenaline junkie. You just didn't go skydiving. You went ghost hunting. Like it's just another rush. That's what it is.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Um,
So
but
continue, yeah, please.
yeah. The last thing I'll talk about is my first experience with something spooky, which was something I experienced kind of on my own. Like I was the only one that experienced this, even though I was with somebody else. This is actually something that scared me and made me not want to talk about it for a long time.
Years.
Years. I didn't speak about it probably 2 or 3 years after it happened, which is a totally different vibe from the first couple stories cuz yeah, like I said, that's kind of also fun with friends, something that you want to share with other people. This was something that happened to me where I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't trying to experience this at all. It just happened to me. And kind of how I teased at the beginning, I was in Colombia, South America, in a place called Valle du Par. So Valle du Par is actually the birthplace of vallenato, which is a a whole genre of Spanish music.
The more we
But
know.
yeah, but in this town, like most places in South America, it's Catholic church is a huge presence. There's huge Catholic cathedrals. Most everybody there says they're Catholic, and everyone goes to mass on Christmas and Easter and stuff like that. In this town, there's also a Catholic retirement home for retired priests or nuns and people in the Catholic community in Colombia. This is a place for them to retire. It's like an old folks home. So this is a lot of people who are very religious, have a lot of spiritual experiences, and a lot of people that are dying there. So this is a place that is in this neighborhood that I'm assigned to. We are living in. So basically, I have a companion assigned to me. He's from Peru, and we had been out teaching, visiting with people throughout the day. If you know, missionaries are required to go back home. They have a curfew at night. And so we had this discussion with people earlier that night, and we left there a little late. We were hustling back to our house because, sometimes you go long and you have to hurry back to not break curfew. How it works is there's this section of town. In between the section of town and where our house is, there's this kind of gap area where it's uninhabited. There's this retirement home, and then there's this next section of houses where we live. So we're hurrying back, going through this area where there's not a lot around, just this retirement home. And we are hurrying, so we are not strolling along next to each other. My companion is probably 5 or 10 feet ahead of me.
Question for
Yeah.
you. Just to make it clear to everyone, this is probably, if you're near curfew time, you're at 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10, like this is late at night. How long had you been on your mission? Is this still pretty new at this point? Are you seasoned?
No, I had been there about a year and a half. So
Oh,
I
you
was
were.
very much, yeah, I was very much in it. I could speak pretty much fluently to people. Also knew this town really well because I had lived in the same town for 9 months
Hmm.
at this point. We would take this route home all the time. So this felt like an ordinary night. We would have done this any night, except we were past curfew and it was getting to a point where, you kind of get in trouble or, you're not supposed to stay out that late. And so we are rushing back. My companion is ahead of me and he is a younger missionary. He's barely 19, has only been there for a few months, but he knows the route. He's leading the way. Usually, when we're walking by, there are a bunch of lights on at this place. It's very protected. There's a fence around it. It's locked up. There's a gate, so nobody can get in. Usually, this is very lit up. And when you go by it, you look past the first gate, and there's this big entranceway, this big hallway from the front door, and you can tell that it goes back a ways. And on the right hand side of the front door, there's this big church. You can tell that they hold mass there and stuff. And then on the left side is all of the living quarters, and there's some other facilities. Usually it's all closed up, and there's just a bunch of lights on so that it's well lit and all this stuff. Well, that night we are going by, and I look over at the building and I realize that there's not as many lights on. And I think, oh, maybe we are late enough that they've turned off a lot of the lights. And I'm walking by, looking at the building, and I am just fascinated by this, that they've turned off all the lights. And as we're walking past the front gate, I look towards the building, and for some reason, the front doors have big double doors that are wide open. And I look in, and the lights inside the building on this hallway are on, and everything else is dark. So all I'm seeing is this tunnel hallway with lights on, front doors wide open to this retirement home. You look down the hallway and there's big archway ceilings, and in the back of this hallway there's a table with some decorations on it and a mirror on the end of the hallway. I'm looking down the hallway and I see someone in a white gown standing in the middle of the hallway. They have long dark hair going down the sides and just a white, looks like a nightgown. I look, and the first thing I realize is this person is not where they should be. They're not standing on the ground. They're too high up to be on the ground. It freaks me out. I think, what am I looking at? And I really stare at this person. I see their eyes looking directly at me. And for a split second, I am staring at this woman floating in the air. And I just see dark, dark eyes staring at me. I hear my companion say, "Elder, elder, elder." And he is right next to me, shaking my shoulder. I look over at him and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just saw, and I turn back. Nothing is there. The doors are still open. The light is still on. Nobody's in the hallway.
Mm-mm.
I turn back to my companion. He says, "What are you doing? You were just standing there." I say, "There was somebody in the hallway." He looks back at me and says, "You were standing there for a minute and I was trying to get your attention and you weren't responding to me." And I said, "What do you mean?" I just glanced over there. There was somebody in the hallway. He says, "No, you've been staring at that building for the longest time. I've been trying to get your attention." And I am so confused because for me, it lasted maybe 3 seconds. I'm walking by. I notice the hallway is open. I see this person standing or floating in the hallway. I make eye contact with them, freak out, and all of a sudden my companion shakes me. That's my experience, which is freaky, scared the shit out of me, and have never forgotten to this day this look of the eye contact with this thing in this hallway. What my companion then tells me scares me even more. He tells me he's walking ahead of me, passes by the retirement home, and he realizes that I'm no longer behind him. He can no longer hear my footsteps. And so he stops probably 50 feet past me at this point. He had just kept walking, and I had stopped there. And I had stopped there long enough for him to get 50 feet away from me. He said that he looked back and noticed that I was staring at the building, and he starts calling for me, and he cannot get me to turn and look at him. So he starts calling me and I'm not responding. So he starts thinking that something's going on and starts walking back towards me, comes up to me and taps me on the shoulder and says, "Elder, what's happening?" And it took that amount of time for him, where for me, it was 5 seconds, maybe. That's the part that scares me the most and still scares me to this day, thinking about it, is
You were in some sort of trance or something.
I didn't realize that something was happening to me and wouldn't have known if he wasn't right there experiencing what was really happening. And that's the part that scares me the most is I still have no feeling of that time passage. It still, to me, felt like a moment, right? But to him, I was fixed on this building and would not pay attention to him. And it took him walking away, calling me, walking back to me until I came out of it.
That is so wild. Mostly because, like, what was it? You saw something, someone floating in a hallway in the distance, and you locked eyes. That's scary imagery enough, right? But then the time lapse, the time loss, I should say, make that make sense, you know?
This is what I still think about. How do I experience something different than someone right next to me? We spend all this time together. It's just you two doing everything together. And all of a sudden, the feeling of, oh, I experienced a whole different time that he did.
That is very wild. Have you talked to this old missionary companion about this since? Do you stay in contact with any of them?
We haven't talked about it that much. After, for him, it's not that big of a deal. It
Right.
was my companion was staring at this building and says that he saw something, and I, for some reason, couldn't get him to answer me for a while. You know, to him, I don't think he would think about it that much.
Right. But you did
Because
explain to him, this is what I saw, this is what happened. And that didn't freak him out to be like, our experiences were two entirely different things.
no, it did freak him out. He actually didn't want to go near that place after that. We kind of avoided it. We took different routes back home after that. He's very superstitious as well. And he is very much the type of, don't go near, don't touch anything that is spooky like that. So we did avoid it. I just think for him, it was a little more mundane, and maybe my companion saw something.
Right. Did you ever bring it
And
up with like your mission president or anything like that?
no, no.
You just
Again,
moved
it
on from it.
was, yeah, it was that thing at that time of don't bring it up any more than, if you speak of it, it's just going to bring more.
Right.
So
Oh,
it was one of those things where I was so scared that I said, I'm not going to spread this at all. I'm not going to talk about this because then more bad things are going to happen. That's what I thought.
and no other experiences like that in that area or sense? No trances, no floating women in hallways? Probably
Nothing like it at
probably for
all.
the best, right?
Yeah, yeah, scary enough the first time. So I don't want that to happen. And, in the moment, I thought it was a total normal thing at first. It was I looked into this building. I thought I was seeing just an old lady in her nightgown walking. Old people walk around their retirement
Old
homes
people
in the
be
middle of the
walking.
night. Yeah. So that's what I registered at first was, oh, there's a person walking around in the hallway. They're just out for their, you know, some old people just walk around the home for a while. It just, when it registered that, oh, this person isn't walking, wait, something is off. This person's in the air. That's kind of how it happened for me. It was something normal that devolved into this is not normal until I looked at their face and I saw that they were staring right at me. And that's when that gut feeling of just,
Staring into your
what?
soul.
Yeah,
Do you think this was
exactly.
like a little bruja or ghost or I
I,
mean, the possibilities are endless, I suppose.
yeah, I think looking back at it in the moment, terrifying, right? Looking back at it now, at least what I tell myself is, maybe there's a lot of people that have died there. I think maybe somebody's just lingering there and I saw them in that moment. The feeling felt dark to me, but that might have just been that I was scared as well. Kind of,
Well, the trance and the time difference here makes me think it was more than just you being scared. Because recognizing an abnormality can be like, wait, whoa, but I feel like this is something else. But again, who knows, right? Who really knows? And that is the thing with like nursing homes, retirement homes. A lot of people die there. I mean, Cassandra from season one, haunted nursing home, dude. It's just a lot higher concentration of that sort of stuff. So I suppose you're more likely or more prone to run into something. But the fact that it specifically happened to you at that day, that time, like it's just because how let me clarify this for myself. How far away, if you're walking on the road that you're on, how far away was like the front door? Like, is this like, oh, I'm on the sidewalk and it's right here kind of thing? Or is it like, oh, the front door to this place is like a parking lot away? Like, help me understand here.
yeah. So we're walking on the sidewalk where the fence is and they have a front gate. I was looking through the front gate, I'd say probably 50 feet to the front door. So it's a good distance, but it's enough to where I look in the hallway and it registers at first. This is a person walking around. And so it takes a second at that distance to think, oh, there's something off about this. So it wasn't that I was super close. And that's also kind of a scary thing is that it affected me at a pretty far distance as
Right.
well, where, it's enough where I can see pretty clearly into this hallway, but I would think would be a safe distance from something affecting me, which is also a scary part.
Right. Would you ever go back
Yeah,
with
I think I
how
would.
you've developed and evolved with your views on this kind of stuff?
Yeah. I think that's the big difference is I would want to see if I still feel something negative about that, or if I go back and if I feel that it's totally fine, then maybe it really was just someone who had died there. And maybe I just got a glimpse at it for a second. I think if I did go back and felt, oh, this does feel negative, that would confirm some things for me as well. Like, oh,
Right. Have you ever looked up this specific place online just to see if there's any other stories or anything out there about it?
no, that's the thing. I've tried to look up Catholic retirement homes or nursing homes in this area, and I can't find anything online about it. So I think it's one of those things where, it's a lot of the church stuff there is not, it's probably not listed as like a place to go for your everyday person. It's like these are priests or nuns, and, people in the establishment
Private,
that get
very
sent there.
private,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah. Very
sponsored by
private.
the church, obviously. So, I mean, who
Yeah.
knows? Who knows? Well, that's fascinating. And there's so much that we could speculate, of course. It's scary
I,
though. It's not, it's a
yeah.
different kind of scary than your first two stories. And you consider this the climax of your scary, but some may not. But I do. I do. I'm on the same page with you about that because it's such a different kind of experience.
Yeah.
It's more haunting. It's more personal. It's less of a
Exactly.
spectacle because it was very much just you and that woman, that person, that thing, that apparition, that specter, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And that's
And it's,
scarier to me.
even if it was just seeing something, that wouldn't have been as scary to me either. The scary part to me is something happening to me that I didn't have control over.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling like I was caught in a trance, and I am not aware of it. And that's the part that scares me the most, is like something having power over you that you're not aware of.
Mm-hmm. Because it shouldn't. You
Yeah.
didn't do anything to let that in. That's
No.
wild. That's this.
And
That is wild.
nothing happened to me. Nothing's happened since. I don't feel like anything lingering has happened from that. I don't feel like I've been haunted or anything past that. So partially it's nothing really did happen to me, permanently,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just in that moment something had control, or
It's
I lost control. That's the
it's
scary thing.
almost like a violation. You feel a little violated to an extent, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Any other experiences you have? You feel good about what we've talked about?
Yeah, I don't have any other really scary, spooky vibe stuff. There are some other wild things that happened while I was down there, people getting killed and stuff like that. But that's more just real life scary and not unholy vibe scary.
Listen, I take it all, dude. I take it all. Maybe we can save that for another time. Yeah, I feel good if you feel good. We've had a nice, long, substantial episode.
So yeah, I'm feeling good. I guess I don't really know how you usually end these things, but that's my truth, and I stand by it.
I love you, Jade. You're great. That's funny. That's funny. So I feel pretty good about it. For anyone listening or watching, if you have any questions, comments, concerns for me, for Jade about these stories, any insights you want to share, reach out. Feel free to DM me on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube at Unholy Vibes Pod, or you can email unholyvibespod@gmail.com if you or anyone you know has any good spooky stories, any good scary stories, any good adrenaline pumping, I almost died stories, near death experiences, chased by a killer, a stalker, an alien, a demon. I want to hear it. I'm in it for the love of the game. I thirst for more. I have an unquenchable, spooky thirst. So please reach out. I want to hear what you have to say. And if you are too nervous or scared to come on yourself and tell your story, you can always submit it to me and I can read it anonymously or tell it anonymously to our listeners. So reach out. You guys are great. Thank you for listening. And thank you, Jade, so much for coming on Unholy Vibes Season 2. I appreciate you.
Yes.
Appreciate your stories. Do you have anything you want to let listeners know about? You want to plug?
No, I if anybody has any other experiences down in San Diego or have had any other weird time things happen to them, I would love to hear the stories. So yeah, just reach out to the pod.
The time loss in the trance is just fascinating. But yeah, you heard the man. Reach out. We want the stories. We want more. We want more. Remember, everyone, stay spooky. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.